So after losing Game 4 against the Boston Celtics, Kyrie Irving was asked about his future in Brooklyn, and he had a lot of positive things to say. And, of course, that involves Kevin Durant, and they plan to guide this organization. We're here to break it down. I am Josue Pavon. He is Bobby Manning. Bobby, I mean, look, it's easy to say that. You're supposed to say that, you know, and when people asked about the kind of players that could help this organization, they didn't want to say crystal, you know, they didn't want to be on the headlines as a saying, this team needs to do this, this team needs to do that. But what Brooklyn Nets fans wanted to hear was they do not plan to leave, or at least Kyrie Irving doesn't. What did you make of those comments after this loss to the Celtics?
The first part's good, the second half's scary, because I feel like this season as a whole, we're listening to the Nets to say, let's rein back in the power and the responsibility that we're giving our players here. The autonomy, I think, is the right word.
Right, but Bobby, that's how this league works, man. Like, at the end of the day, if that wasn't the case, then Kyrie would maybe think about other options, other teams out there. I mean,
bluff.
Really?
Would it be the worst thing in the world to lose him? It'd be bad. But if you're going to hand the keys over him now, after how the Steve Nash experience went, and that's what we're going to have to talk about here is Nash's future, probably in doubt. I don't know if he's going to step down or they're going to fire him or what, but he's probably the scapegoat of all of this. Everyone involved, I think, has some responsibility in making that choice and putting the coach in a back seat to the stars because they clearly weren't able to handle themselves. Harden and Durant going at it, reportedly. Harden getting mad at Irving because Irving stayed home. And that's really the lesson of all of this is that Irving didn't show up this year. He said it himself. They didn't gel. They didn't have the time together, and that was on him. So you need a stronger coach in here. You need more organizational power and say in everything that's going on here because this is a good organization. We remember those D'Angelo Russell teams. Mm-hmm. We saw how fast this team bounced back from that awful trade with the Celtics, the Pierce Garnett one. So their GM knows what they're doing. The organization knows what they're doing. The coach didn't. And I think the players showed that they don't either. So it's scary to hear Irving say, we're going to guide this ship with the GM and with the ownership group here because they should not be hand in hand. They should be part of the conversation. Yeah, but those guys got to make the decisions.
Yeah, but you know they have leverage in this, Bobby, because at the end of the day.
They don't. Durant signed long term.
No, but Bobby, they're looking at it as, oh, well, Kyrie only played 29 games. If that wasn't the case, then we would have figured this thing out and this, that, and the fourth. But they don't want to mention that, though. That's the part that gets me. It's like, well, yeah, we dealt through a lot this season and there was COVID. Well, wait a minute. Was this by choice? Because if it wasn't, stand by. I mean, if it was, which it was, stand by that. You know, don't pretend like that wasn't the case or like as if your hands were tied. So moving forward, I feel like Kyrie is like, well, if I can play now, I'm good to go. We won't go through these same issues. And if I was able to play from the very beginning, we would be a 4 seed or we would be a 3 seed. You know, that's what they're thinking.
It is what they're thinking. It's the story the reporters are writing, and it's become the theme of this week. We didn't have time. We went through a lot. Nash saying he feels bad for these stars, talking about Ramadan and, you know, like, all respect to everything Irvin's doing there, but saying, like, these guys went through a lot this year. They struggled. I don't know how they did it. They put it on themselves. Durant got hurt, so legitimate excuse there. But Irving had the power to come back.
Durant had to carry him through, but yeah.
The internal strife was something that someone could have stepped up and fixed here, but instead, Harden ends up bombing his way out. They didn't make a great trade, seeing how this Ben Simmons thing is played out. And right up until the last day of the season today, with the whole Simmons fiasco, and we recorded a video on that earlier, doesn't seem like the organization and Simmons team are on the same page about his comeback. So everything here was botched on so many different levels, and it can't just be chalked up to, we had a tough year, guys missed games. That sounds like the Celtics from earlier in the year.
No, that sounds like the cop-out that Kyrie wants to hold on to, and Steve Nash is trying to do the same thing because he's trying to keep his job.
It's rationalizing, right? Because they have to run this back. It's their only choice.
That's the only thing.
And
that's how they sell to the organization to keep us around. Please give us another chance because you know we didn't expect these hurdles.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous in my mind. I don't know how you feel about it.
It is and it isn't. I'll tell you how I'll explain myself in a second. And this segment is brought to you by HelloFresh. Let's pay the bills first. This segment is sponsored by HelloFresh. Head over to HelloFresh.com/banner16. You get 16 free meals, 3 special gifts, and only because you're watching us right now. It's easy. Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this deal. It's HelloFresh.com/banner16. Get 16 free meals, 3 special gifts, brought to you by HelloFresh, America's #1 food kit. Bobby, finally, the last thing I want to talk about is, you know, the Nets moving forward. Now, they're not going to say names, but Durant isn't at least. But Durant talked about guys like the Celtics who were tough, who were gritty, who were physical. He said that they were bigger. He talked about guys like Dragic and Patty Mills getting caught on the switch, and how they didn't want to flat out say these are the kind of guys that we need, but that was sort of the vibe that I got. And of course, when the question was brought up about Steve Nash, he's like, man, listen, this guy didn't get a didn't get a fair shot at this season. So he's got excuses for Nash as well. I guess this is a two-parter. One, does Nash come back? Gun to your head if you had to answer it. And two, what type of adjustments would you make, or what kind of players would you target if you were in the Brooklyn Nets' front office?
Nash isn't coming back. So, first of all, he's out of here.
I agree with that.
Fair or not, he's the scapegoat. He didn't have answers. He didn't help the cause here.
But you know what's going to happen, though? Because we've seen this in the past in the NBA, right? It's going to be, well, obviously this is all about what you were saying, player empowerment and all that. It's going to be, well, we like the guy. We didn't think he got a fair shot, but this guy just fell into our lap. Whoever this new coach is, this new guy just fell into our lap. We didn't know he'd be interested, and it was a match made in heaven. But yeah, I can see that happen.
Jacques Vaughn on the bench was a good coach for them for a little while. So I'd be interested to see if he gets a shot. Frank Vogel, do they do a coach trade with the Lakers of sorts? Let's see how that goes. But we'll do another Nets video some other time on their coaching candidates. In terms of players, yes, they need to be more defensive minded, and that comes from a coach. That comes from other players who could possibly join them. And it's not a great free agent class, so they're going to be struggling to find those guys. But a youth movement could help. Cam Thomas, I like on their team. Day'Ron Sharpe, a good center prospect who played well for them at times this year. They have good young players on the roster. David Duke, Kessler Edwards has a defensive pedigree. Nash didn't buy into those guys enough in the series or all year long, really. So something of a youth movement, I think, would be good for them. Older veterans like Aldrich and Blake obviously fell off the map by the end of this run here. Dragic did not go well. So I think the veteran minimum signings are something that proved not to work there. But yes, I said, and I liked this team when it came together, the big three. I said that they could be something of a pseudo-Warriors with how much offense they had. But they never had a defensive identity under Steve Nash. Zero. And that was the reason they got blown away in this series. It's still the reason in my mind they lost to the Bucks last year, not the foot on the line. So that's got to be the thinking. How are we going to become a great defensive team? And that starts with stars, too, because Irving and Durant did not play good defense in this series themselves.
That's true. Very true. Low-costing guys that are on, looking for their second contract. I think those are the younger guys that you need. But young, proven guys, right? I feel like the Brooklyn Nets, just like most of super teams throughout the NBA, they go for the like you said, the minimums, veterans, guys that are over the hill, but they're willing to take a couple million to come in and compete for championship.
Who were the two best players in this series for the Nets?
The two best players? You don't think it was Kyrie and Durant?
I think it was Bruce Brown and Nick Claxton.
No.
Most consistent. You knew what you were going to get from them.
But Bruce Brown put up a dud, though. That's the thing. I would agree with you on that one, but that dud.
Most active, most energetic. Those guys gave them a lot of life. They played hard.
Yeah, missing all those free throws didn't help, but outside of that, they did play hard, and he was sort of that factor that people supped about.
Those guys.
Yeah.
I think the fans really like those guys too. Brown was on the bench in January. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. So they need a coach who can really raise up and empower some of the role players here. Irving and Durant are going to have to do that too. Right. That's the move here. But from a Celtics perspective, this team isn't going to be a threat to Boston anytime soon. I think we've seen Tatum surpass Durant here. I think certainly Brown has at least found equal footing with Irving in the league's hierarchy here. So those are the important things from a Celtics perspective. Everything else, Brooklyn's got to figure that out.
Definitely. And we'll pick up on this Brooklyn conversation sometime in the summer, because enough about them. They're out. The Celtics are moving on to the second round. Continuous coverage, obviously, is here. CLNS Media on YouTube, of course, on clnsmedia.com as we get you ready for whoever the Celtics are playing up next. I'm sure we'll get a Garden Report segment going. And, man, I love this.
In this conversation. We just forgot about him. But
you told me. You told me you didn't want to. You said you were done talking about him on the Celtics postgame show, and you were so happy that we did the full extent of the conversation in pregame, because
TBD.
that Woj bomb dropped right before our segment, our pregame segment outside of Barclays. So it worked out perfectly. We're good. We'll pick up on that Ben Simmons conversation, or whatever report that comes out between now and, I don't know, June or July. I'm sure something will come out of that camp, whether it's he wants to stay for good, or he wants out, or he's done playing basketball. One of the three.
Time for a hard-earned break for Simmons.
Yeah. Yeah, some time to reflect, and that. Trust me, that's not a knock. That's gonna do it for us here at Barclays Center. For Bobby Manning, I'm Josue Pavon. We'll see you back in Boston.